All right, and we're rolling. Monique Allen, welcome to the Beer and Business Podcast. We're excited to have you on today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So before we get into your story and this lovely conversation, we are drinking Line Creek, the official beer of the Beer and Business Podcast. Today we are drinking a very, very scrumptious IPA, a fruited IPA called Knucklehead. I think they named it after Darren. But you're actually drinking some beer, too. You are in Medfield, Massachusetts. Is that right?
Yep.
And are you drinking from a local brewery up there?
I am. The Trillium Brewing Company.
I've actually had their beer. It's pretty good.
Really?
Very good. Yep.
Well, if you were in studio with us, and we wish you were, you'd be drinking one of the finest beers around, Line Creek. But, you know, I've had Trillium, so we'll allow it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine.
So and it's a double IPA, so it's
she's actually more of a big boy than we are today, guys.
Hey, come on! I am in construction.
Oh, yes, exactly. Thank you, touche. So, Monique, we obviously talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and most of the entrepreneurs we talk to haven't been in business that long. And you know, when we hear somebody that's been in business 10 years or 15, maybe even 20, we're like, "Whoa, man, you've been in business for a while." You started your business in 1991. You have seen a lot, have you not?
Yeah, a couple things. Yeah, for sure.
So can I ask you, so just so our audience knows, let's give you a little bit of a bio here. You started a landscaping company in 91, which we're going to talk about.
You said landscaping, not manscaping, right?
Yeah, thank you, Darren. I got a podcast with this guy, Monique.
It's scary.
It's like following a puppy around. All I do is just fix his mistakes. But you started a landscaping company in 91. You also have written a book we're going to talk about. You do some consulting work and some public speaking. And you're a very busy person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have kids too, and a husband. So,
So you've got, how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids and also a stepdaughter who is also works for me.
So you add in the husband and you're taking care of 4. So yes, you are very busy. Yep. So what got you into landscaping?
It was it's like one of those mistakes that happens, those lucky mistakes that happens in your life. And I was all about fashion and kind of really loved kind of that cool world of creativity on that side. But I also had this real science brain. And I was working in a clothing store and I was completely miserable. And one of my friends just looked at me and said, "Hey, why don't you come work with us this weekend?" And, the rest is history. I ended up going to a job site. I learned to mulch. I had no idea what he was asking me to do. And I thought I died and went to heaven. I went from thinking work was going to be this hellish experience in life to all of a sudden being like, wait a minute, you're going to pay me to do this? And that was it.
Wow. So you didn't want to lie to people anymore when they try to dress on or some pants and they're like, does this dress make my ass look fat? And you're like, oh, no. I'd rather be outside. I could tell the truth.
Yep.
Nice. So that's really interesting. So this wasn't like a career track for you. You didn't go to school for it. You literally got introduced by accident and realized you loved it.
Yeah. So, I was an 18-year-old who had really, the things I wanted to do was I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to drive a Porsche, but I had no idea how to get there and I sucked at school. Right. So this wasn't going to work. Right. And selling clothes wasn't going to work. But, all of a sudden, I didn't even know landscaping would work. All I knew was I was happy.
So you started off working for a landscape company?
Yep.
And so how long did you do that before you started to get the bug and think, maybe I should venture out on my own?
Not long. So I worked one summer with this guy and his guys, and I learned sort of the rough and tumble of spreading mulch and just doing what you were told and basically being a mulch monkey. And then I was so happy that my mother connected me to a series of people, and I ended up landing a job with a woman who was a landscape designer and a fine gardener. And I didn't know anything about that, but she worked with flowers and gardening, and she ended up being an amazing mentor, and I worked for her for 2 years. And then I pushed her. I kept pushing her in business. I was in school for business, so I kept pushing her, but it wasn't her gig. She didn't want to build a big business. So I was like, yeah, I got to go because I got to build a business.
So you just said, I'm out, and you're going to jump in.
Yeah, I was nicer than that. So like I was nicer than that. She and I ended up working together for a while, but like at 21, I sold my first 5-figure job, and there was no way I was ever turning back. I was just hooked. Now, and remember, my father was self-employed. He was a mechanical engineer. And
I just heard the Boston come out in her voice.
Yeah.
Like you're like really, really neutral, and all of a sudden there it is.
It's an engineer.
Don't forget your R's.
Yeah.
Where do you park your car?
Car.
I park my car.
In the car pack.
In the Harvard yard.
Sorry.
Hey, he's got Smart Pack.
So your dad was a bit of an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And so did you just start off by going out and trying to bid jobs individually, and you finally landed one and said, well, now I'm going to make a business out of this?
Well, so what I did was I made a business card that said Monique Papazian Gardener. That was it. My maiden name was Papazian. And I just made a business card, my name, Gardener. And then I met builders and landscape contractors, and I just said, do you want to plant do you want flowers? Guys didn't know anything about flowers, and I was learning all this about flowers. So I was like, you can make your landscape a whole lot nicer if you add flowers. And so I sort of eked my way into it that way by adding an enhancement service to landscape companies that didn't otherwise know about those services or know how to do them back then. And so I had found this little niche for myself. And what basically happened was I got this itch. I'm like, well, I'm doing the little jobs. I can do what these guys can do. And so I wanted the bigger jobs. And my mentor had encouraged me to go to school for landscape design. Mm-hmm. And so I started going to school for landscape design. And as I was in school, I started designing jobs and selling them. And it just got bigger and bigger.
So I love this, because how many times have we heard these stories about entrepreneurs where they didn't have a big fancy business plan, all right, perfectly laid out and modeled. She's like, oh, okay, I'm going to figure this out as I go.
Right. Yeah. What's the difference between a perennial and an annual? I'm not sure, but
yeah, sure, I can do that. I don't even know what you asked me, but I'm going to try to figure it out.
In fairness, I did go to school to Northeastern, right? So, and I was, I think, in the first graduating class for entrepreneurship. And one of the classes was you actually had to write a business plan. So I wrote a business plan for a landscape company.
Did you actually use it, or was it like, as soon as you got in and started operating, you just kind of toss it out the window?
Pretty much that.
Yes, I think it's so funny. We talk to people about this all the time. We get access to a lot of entrepreneurs, even outside the podcast. And it's just funny. It's like, yeah, putting together a business plan it's a good exercise. It gets you thinking about a lot.
Right.
It can be really helpful if you're looking for financing, but you ain't going to use it.
No.
As soon as you get punched in the face, it's on, game on. Yeah. Forget about the plan.
Well, the other thing is trying to figure out, your margins. I'm sure you learned that really fast too.
Yeah.
Profit and loss. It's like, wait a second, I bid this job and I had to pay extra back.
Yeah.
What happened?
Wait, I had to pay my client.
So you're still in business, and you've gone through a lot over that. Your business transformed. It kind of went from this little business into a big business. Now, how many employees do you have? You've got quite a team.
Yeah, we'll have we're onboarding 3 tomorrow, so we'll have 22.
Wow. And I was looking on your website that I think it said you guys have like 30 degrees and certifications among your team in your field, something like that. Some crazy number.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So I'm really interested, since you've been in business for a while and you've seen and learned a lot. I got to imagine the Great Recession in 2008 was not friendly to your business.
No, it wasn't at all. And the interesting thing about my business is, we're what would be considered a lagging business, right?
Yeah.
So we're definitely not an indicator in the market at all. But I didn't know that back then, and I didn't pay attention to it. But basically, you have to look at the builders market and the housing market, and then go down the pipeline a couple of years and then you hit landscape companies. So for me, the big hit was in 2010. And so we saw our best year in 2008. And then
You guys are like, what recession?
Yeah.
what
Like
recession?
balling.
Like, we're doing
You got to
great.
finish the
Like,
job that started. That's why, you know.
Yeah. So everything is started and rolling. And then in 2009, we saw a small downtick and we were ready for it. And we, cut expenses and everything. In 2010, my business shrunk by half, and it was brutal. It was like a bleed out.
I mean, how jarring was that? Did you guys think that you were somewhat insulated from what was going on, and then it just hit you by surprise, or were you thinking that this may be something that's on the horizon?
I did not think that was on the horizon. When I saw it go down in 2009, I expected in 2010 it might go down a little bit more. But this was all stuff we were planning for, and we were reining in expenses, and we were thinking and planning. But
we can handle a 5% or
Here's your
10% drop in revenues.
Marketing plan. Would you like to increase the price on your foreclosure by a few dollars? Let's put in some nice flowers and landscape. Doesn't go over so well. Okay.
No.
Well,
and here's the thing: I didn't understand. So I didn't understand the market. The thing that I found was incredible was that I worked for some wealthy people.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, they have money. Like this is fine. But what happened was that's who I lost. I lost the $30,000 and $40,000 annual accounts. I lost the accounts that I thought would be the accounts that rich people during a recession, like they're going to be fine. But what I didn't understand was that, they were using their market, right, and the money they were making in the market to have all of these great things. Whereas the people who were more modestly employed, had a great job and a good salary, they were budgeting to use me. They didn't leave me. All the rich people left me. And so when you have a lot of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 clients, that's all well and good. But when you're 30s and 40s and 50s, when they leave, how many new $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 clients did I need to fill that huge gap? I couldn't do it.
Was it annual or monthly? When you say 5, 6, 7, or 30,000, is that a month or annually?
Annually. So
Okay.
for landscape,
Okay.
so if I have a home and that home is spending 30 grand a year on landscape,
Right.
but the more average spend could be something like 12,000.
Yeah.
So I need 2 of the 12s to make the 30 almost, and that's what happened. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand how sort of the economies worked in people's households.
So that's just crushing. I mean, we've heard so many stories about this where people's revenue just, fell off the table. And for you to take, a little bit of a drop in '09 and then lose half in 10, that's just, that's a remarkable drop. What did you guys do to stave off the bleeding and try to survive through that period?
Well, I worked really hard. I cried a lot.
So it's like Darren,
Like everybody did.
Yeah.
I still do that
Thing about
every
landscaping,
day.
You just crawl under a shrub and cry. And I got really creative. I just started getting creative, and that's when I first hired a business coach. So in the end of 2010, I decided that with the no money that I had, I would spend more and hire help. And I hired somebody to take a really critical look at my business.
So she leaned in, man.
Yeah.
That's the way
I
to do
leaned
it.
in wicked.
Wow.
Like I scared people. I leaned in so much.
Did you have
But
to
I
lay
wasn't
off
going to
people?
lose this.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, at this point, so 2010, I'm not a math major, but you're 19 years in at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot invested. And the one thing that I want people to really hear and understand is, you said you cried a lot and you kind of laughed and skipped over that. But unless you've been an entrepreneur and built a business, and for you to have so many years into it, it is hard to understand the level of commitment that it takes to build something and to see your brand come alive and your customers that you went out and captured, all this stuff just boom, evaporate. It is really, really an emotional thing. It's very, very difficult. And I don't know that we give people enough credit to say that it's okay to be sad about that. That's a big freaking thing.
I think there's a difference, and part of that, there's a difference. It's like when you build a business and somebody comes up and makes you an offer to sell, and you're like, okay, it's your baby at one point, but it's like, hey, that's good money. You have new parents now, and you foster your kid off. But when you've been embedded like this, and you're trying to make it through it, it's a different kind of emotional and mindset that you're dealing with. And it's like, no, I got to find a way to pull through this. And so money, hires a coach.
So you're on the ropes. You, instead of withdrawing and in trying to save your way through it, you actually invest in listen, anybody that's hired a business coach knows that none of those sons of bitches are cheap. Y'all need to drop your prices. But so you're probably spending an exorbitant amount of money. But what did you? I mean, that's an open kimono exercise. That's not easy. Like, what did you learn?
No, you bear it all. And so the way I did it was the first year I hired him as a consultant to come in and talk to me and my husband. At that point in time, my husband worked for me. And it
did you hear that,
an
boys?
enormous amount of
He was the business coach didn't realize he was also the marriage counselor too at the time.
Let's get one thing straight, honey. You work for me.
That's a great backstory.
Yeah, I bet it is.
But yet, so I had him, and my husband wasn't really on board, but this has always been my business, and he's been a great supporter of my drive to build a business. So he didn't want to spend that money, but I was going to do it. And what he did was he really looked hard at what my husband's role was, what my role was. And at that point in time, I actually was running two businesses. So I had a design build business, but I also had a gardening business. So gardening was my beginning. But as I got hungrier and wanted to do more things, I was developing a design build business. And I thought I just had one business that did design, build, and fine gardening. Well, this coach pointed out to me, he's like, you are fundamentally running two businesses. You don't have two separate P&Ls. Your cost structure is entirely different for the two of them. The way you schedule is different for the two of them. And you're running them like it's one, but it's tearing you apart. You don't understand. And my brain, like every synapse in my brain just blew up. I was like, dude, that makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. No wonder I'm like coming apart at the seams.
What kind of gardener are you?
Fine gardener.
Oh, okay.
She's a really good one.
Well, when it blew her mind apart, I didn't know. She maybe found some mushrooms. So I was
Are you gardening?
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to make it through this recession. Just don't look in the backyard right now.
Oh, well, man, come over here. You see, this is my Kush stash bed. And... Yes, no, she gardens plants, not drugs. Okay, Darren?
Plants.
Oh, Lord. I got a podcast with this guy.
Cannabis is a plant.
Monique,
I do garden a lot of drugs.
They're
Medicinals.
They're medicinal.
Come on,
Yeah.
you get into the medicinal world. That's a big thing.
You plant juniper bushes, right? And the juniper berries, perfect for when you're mixing it, infusing it into gin. That's what you make gin with.
Okay, no, I need to get us back on topic because now we're talking about drugs and Darren's freaking out. So I need you're talking about
a whole new conversation we can have offline, Monique.
There's a lot of brain cells fried over to my left. But really interesting. So as we've been going through this series, Mr. Winning, we've been talking to people about their businesses. One of the common themes that we're hearing from those that came out stronger is that they rebuilt their business model, which is exactly what she's talking about.
Bobby did that. He had a drywall company, and then they had the remodeling company, and it's like, whoa, they started a new thing. And
I'm curious, because most landscape companies up north have to be diversified anyway, because it's a very seasonal business. So what did you do during the winter time?
most of them snowplow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got the.
Yeah.
Did you snowplow in the winter? No.
Nope.
So what did you guys do?
I had a real definitive picture about what I wanted my business to be. And so I also don't mow lawns.
Good for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
So what I learned in this whole process through several business coaches and several iterations was that I had to get really, really clear about what I was doing personally as the founder and the leader of this company. And then I needed to get that so clarified that I'd be able to build an entire service structure around it. And the key is for me to be able to make enough money in 9 months out of the year to manage 12 months out of the year. Because I don't want to snowplow.
Yeah.
We've done it. I mean, we've done it,
Yeah.
but it's a different business. It's not landscaping. It's moving water.
So you had gardening and then building. What was the other half of that?
Design,
it was
build,
design.
and fine gardening.
Design and build. What does that really mean?
So I am a certified designer, and so I will take pieces of land, and sometimes they're small plots, sometimes it's 10 acres. I've done big riverway restorations, I've done parks, and I've done houses. And basically I'm looking at a tract of land and I'm determining what the program is going to be for that land based on the client that I'm serving.
Okay.
And then I design a solution, and our solutions are all sustainable, low impact, as much organics as we can possibly do. And then we build that.
Okay. So you know how to put in a French drain.
Yeah.
Okay. So now
Darren Flanagan, folks, okay? Darren Flanagan. Send all your freaking emails to him.
Out of all that.
Listen,
French drain.
No, I got
if I had to draw a picture of what it was like in Darren's brain, it would not be pretty.
Take 120
It'd take a lot of crayons.
different colors of crayons and just run them all over the table at one time.
Okay,
But
so
no,
let me
really,
get back to something here, Monique.
her business coach.
Right. So you're working with this business coach. You know, you've realized that you're running multiple businesses, but you're running them the same way. So how much did you change your operations, your overall strategy, how you were structured? Was it pretty radical, or were you tweaking?
No, it was initially tweaking because I didn't have I didn't really have the
Money?
pockets to make any really big changes.
You can say it. We were all broke
Initially,
back then.
I was like shoestringing it wicked. But I did end up divisionalizing my company. And so in order to do that, I basically started running separate P&Ls, and then I started running separate crews. And now I was able to track activities in a separate way. And now I was able to see, oh, well, when I do this activity, I can make this much money. And when I do that activity, the P&L looks different. The profit structure looks different. So actually my service structure even has to look different. What I'm charging has to look different. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot by doing that. I just learned so much about what it meant to be a gardener and giving maintenance to a client versus design build, and where I could charge my premiums, where my unique genius in what I do actually had value more than just $1 per hour. And so I stopped looking at my business as an hours, dollars trading system, and instead looked at it as a result delivery mechanism. And by doing that, I was able to create a path for fine gardening that was actually quite different than the path for design build. And my business just was able, we ended up growing 30%, over 30% a year. I just slammed it into overdrive. And in 3 years, I was back to where I was when we crashed.
Man, that's amazing.
Wow, awesome.
And you know what? I mean, it may have started off as kind of incremental changes, but I mean, that's pretty radical. You know, it's a big difference when you talk about, you know, compartmentalizing and having departments, different P&Ls, moving to value-based pricing instead of, you know, time and materials. Those are all really, really big changes and a huge, huge shift in mindset.
Yes.
And that's something that we're finding from everybody that's come out of the recession stronger than they went in, that we're talking to. That's what we continue to find is they use that time to say, all right, things are bad. How can we change? How can we evolve? And how can we come out of it stronger than we went in?
So let me ask you this, Monique. When you're going through this and you're realizing you've got two different companies, two different entities, and you got to split them apart. Your husband, you said he worked for you. Did he kind of go to one division and you go to the other? Or how did your, actually, let me ask you this. We got planes flying overhead in there in midfield.
You're at a stop sign or a stoplight, aren't you?
I am at a stop, yeah. And I got all my windows closed. That's a Harley, by the way.
Oh, yes, bike. That's what we should be doing.
I'm not going to talk about it.
Did your position change at all at that point? I mean, were you actually out there working day to day and still trying to manage your company? And all of a sudden you were like, oh, I've got to kind of come back.
Delegate.
Thank you. Delegate a little bit more. And
Mr. Winnie can say in one word that takes Darren 50.
Too much going on in the brain.
So
I told you we weren't going to actually complete sentences on this podcast.
Yeah, and I'm getting it. I'm starting to get the question with only a few words.
Dude, this girl's wicked smart.
We may have to have her back again.
Of course I am. Come on.
With a last name like Papasano?
In 2011, my husband and I decided not to work together anymore. He's still my husband, which is awesome because he's in the business and I adore him and it's all good. But when he came to work for me in 2000, when I actually started this business, so my first business grew up and became this business, which then grew up again and it's changed again, even since the Great Recession changing. We decided it was just better that he go his own way and I go my own way because I had a vision. My vision got so clear through the working with this first coach where I got to travel around the country and see other landscape companies and how they were running. And then I worked with a different coach. I started to really get clear about what I wanted and a partnership wasn't going to work. You know, he didn't want what I wanted. So what was I going to do? Take him kicking and screaming. So he and I, we chose our marriage over my business. And then I was really able to, I decided to change my title. I wanted to have the title creative director. And then I don't work in the field. I point a lot. My husband says that my pointer finger is like the strongest muscle in my body.
Nice.
As a wife and a mother and a business owner, it should be.
Yep.
It's strong every day. So did you send him off to become a doctor to drive a Porsche? And
no.
That way you could fulfill that dream at 18?
No, but I still have my Porsche picture up on the wall. I'm getting it. So
you should.
Gonna get it.
So, a really interesting point. You know, my wife and I are business partners, and I get asked about it a lot because people are like, "Oh, it must be cool to be in business with your spouse." And it's really funny you say that. The one thing I tell people, if they have any interest at all, is if you are not on the same page in terms of where you want to take the business, forget it. Don't even try it. Which we happen to be, which is good. But yeah, if you don't have that makes all the difference in the world.
It does. And we were, for the first 10 years, we were solid up until the Great Recession. We were solid. We were like, people couldn't believe how we worked together. Mm-hmm. And then the Great Recession happened and not only the market crashed, right? Like the whole way we did business crashed, and the way I felt we needed to get out of it was different than the way he felt. And no disrespect, his way may have worked, but I couldn't run that company.
Yep. No, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And kudos to you guys for recognizing that and making that tough decision. Mm-hmm. And also, big props to you for taking a step taken a big leap, really, and getting that feedback from coaches and really completely reevaluating everything, because I think that that's something that we should do on a regular basis, but unfortunately it usually takes external forces for us to get outside of our business for a minute, which a recession is usually a pretty good way to say, okay, you know what, maybe I'll step back and do a little strategy here.
I'll just fire my spouse.
That's all it takes. Less income, less spending.
Yeah.
Fire my spouse. That works. Oh wait, that's a different
simple
aspect.
equation. So I want to talk a little bit about what's going on today. And I want to bring your book into this. So you wrote a book called Stop Landscaping, Start Lifescaping. And before we talk about the recession and what we're going through today, I want you to give us kind of the 30,000-foot view of what your book is about and the principles of lifescaping.
So the 30,000-foot view is that we have an opportunity to mold our outside environments in ways that enhance our ability to live full lives. I don't believe that the landscape industry is necessarily doing that, because when you commoditize anything and then you put it on steroids and speed it up and you hype it through the media, something gets lost. It's inevitable. It gets lost. And what's happening in this industry and all the time that I've been in it is it's becoming what I call a combination of featurescaping and deadscaping. And I didn't want to do that.
Deadscaping sounds bad. I don't even know what that is. I don't want it.
Yeah, if you've ever
that's
fought
like my
with
yard.
a lawn, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You have intense compaction in a lawn because somebody just built a house. And when they built the house, every pickup truck in the neighborhood had to park where we were going to put a lawn, because God forbid anybody walk. Right? So we got to park right
That
up
takes
against
a lot
the
of effort.
house. And then we got to put the dumpster right there. And then we back everything out and we roll out sod and we wonder, why isn't the grass doing well?
Yeah.
Well, we've murdered everything in the soil. So I was sort of, I didn't coin the term lifescaping. I was just playing with the idea that you can deadscape, you can featurescape, or you can lifescape. Oh, I want to do that.
What about xeriscape? Is that okay too?
Xeriscaping.
That's my yard.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
Just let
you
me
can
put,
do that.
give me all rocks and just plants that I can't kill. I need
There
air
you go.
ferns and rocks, and I'm good. Your lawn
There you
looks
go.
great.
Yeah.
So what exactly is lifescaping?
So lifescaping, at the end of the day, is a place that is going to be restorative to you. It's a place that's going to be resonant. And I break it down into 3 pieces. I say that it needs to be organized, it needs to be healthy, and it has to have wow factor. Because no matter which way you slice it, there's this thing in the human brain that when you look at something and it's somewhat awe-inspiring, it does something to the nervous system. It shakes it up a little bit. It gets it out. It gets you out of your own way. So we're really looking for spaces to restore people, not keep up with the Joneses. It's just very, very different. And what I'm noticing now, which is really cool, is I'm getting emails from clients that are telling me that they don't know how they would have gotten through this without their yard.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about. And what I find interesting about your book and your philosophies, and one of the things that hit me over the head, I don't remember if it was an interview I was listening to you that you were on, or it was something that I read, but essentially you stated that, landscaping is something that you look at, and a lifescaping is something that you experience, you live in. And it got me really thinking differently, even about my own house, to be honest with you. But I always thought about landscaping as something visual, not necessarily, bringing the experience of the outdoors to, that space in the yard that you want to go have a cup of coffee, or if you have a pool, what do you want that feeling to be around the pool? It really opened my eyes and got me thinking, like, Jesus, I've been thinking this whole landscape thing for a long time. I just thought I had to look
relax and recharge.
Right,
That's
but
what I get out of it.
For you,
like,
it's all about how do you live in that space? How do you connect with the world around you in nature, which is much different than the way that I've ever thought about landscaping.
Yeah, and when you remember not to get too woo-woo, but that, human beings are animals. And we resonate with the animal kingdom, and we resonate with the plant.
I podcast with a couple animals. So.
There you go. You see, you're surrounded. So the key is that we have a symbiotic relationship with nature. There's resonance. Yep. And so when human being, even if you don't think you like nature, right? When human beings are in healthy nature, there's a reset that's happening in the brain, and it helps you to become more deeply functional. So when you have high anxiety, or when you are in moments of high stress, to be able to go to a healthful landscape is really going to help you. And the issue is that if you're going into a landscape that has been sheared to within an inch of its life and chemicalized, then that resonance isn't there. You will not get the vibrational resonance. So it has to be healthy. It has to have these features of Lifescape that connect. You don't need to know they're connecting, but they do.
That's really funny that you say that, because, the three of us here, we're all outdoor guys. We all recharge outdoors. Mm-hmm. And I love to hike. And, it's funny. I've had a lot of people in my life, family members, friends or whatever, and they're like, I don't like hiking, and I'm not into doing that kind of stuff. And you take them on a hike to a beautiful waterfall. Yeah. And I don't care who you are. You're just like, damn. There's just something about, that's pretty effing cool that nature did that, Yeah. You can't help but be swallowed up by it. And you're right. I mean, whether you think you're into it or not, you can't help but be captivated by a really amazing outdoor space.
Well, she's talking about outdoor feng shui, kind of.
Yeah. No, she's not.
Yes, she is. She is. She's talking about.
Do you even know what feng shui is?
Yes, I actually do.
Of course he does. He knows all the useless crap.
All the useless crap.
Not that feng shui is useless, people.
And no, I'm serious about that. Well, as long as you don't plant sweet gum trees in your yard, that screws up everything.
She doesn't know about sweet gum trees up there.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
I have a sweet gum. What are you talking about?
Oh,
like a sandbar?
It's the devil
They're the
tree.
devil. Yes, they are straight from Lucifer
They
himself.
grow like weeds down here.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Like 10 feet a year, and it's just... Oh.
They will wreck your
They
pool
drop their
cleaner
hellish little spiky balls over the ground.
Do you know that those little balls look like COVID?
Yeah,
they do.
See?
Oh, great.
See?
Exactly. It's the virus.
It all
there
makes sense
Son
now.
of a
The devil.
That's it. No, but I mean, when you say that there's how the earth, depending on the plants and the trees and how everything, you said people shear it down to an inch of its life and take away that energy. And then you said all of this connects and has this resonant energy that you don't feel. That's why I said outdoor feng shui. That's what it's like.
I got you, Darren.
Am I wrong?
do too, but I really
you're
just
not wrong.
saw
You're
that as a
talking
great
about
opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, positive energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Positive energy.
Here's why I think that this is really important. And when we listen, these guys are out of control.
Hey, this is your new show format.
You know what?
no,
I think I'm
great.
going to go cry under a shrub for a minute. I'll be back.
It
worked for Monique. It got her out of the Great Recession. I might
see what happens when we
try it for a few
unshackle
minutes.
Darren. Yeah, he's crying under a bush. No, but what I find really interesting, and this is one of the big messages I've had for people. We've talked about this on the show. We talk about it amongst each other a lot.
Go outside.
Right. The one thing about this, pandemic, shutdown, quarantine, whatever the hell you want to call it, the one thing that is just an absolute truth for anybody is if you turn on the news and watch it, or you go into social media, it will freak you the fuck out.
Two big mistakes there.
Yeah, it's just, it will. It's too much.
Depressing.
It is. It's very depressing. I don't care what you think about, whether you think that the virus is a hoax or you're afraid of getting sick. Whatever your position is, if you watch the news, if you get on social media, you're going to get freaked out. It's terrible.
Go outside.
Yeah, and I've even done it. Like I've even said, I'm gonna log in today and just see, since I haven't been watching the news, I want to see what I don't know. Oh my God, it's crazy. But it's amazing. You step outside, this is the restorative, the weather's nice, the birds are chirping. It's like you walk outside and the real world that you're living in is absolutely nothing like what you're seeing on the news.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is this hyperstimulation that's going on, and we're hyperstimulated in a lot of different ways. So if you're logging on to social media, you're going to be hyperstimulated that way, and of course you're looking at a glossed over world. And hey, I'm on social media. I don't have any problem with it. But if you're feeling anxious at all, and social media is what you go to, then it's going to hype up that part of your brain. There's no way to get away from that. And then, of course, yes, if you turn on the news, that hyperstimulation becomes worse. And what happens is there's this like undeniable disconnect that happens in our brains around our ability to feel human, because we immediately start feeling less or not enough, or in danger, we're in fear, everything's amped up. When you go outside, then what happens is that distraction, it goes down. And the interesting thing about Lifescape, when I say wow, the wow factor piece, I'm really talking about things that are beautiful in the way that they're somewhat awe-inspiring, or they're very calming. I'm not talking about like highly designed landscape that's also hyperstimulating, right? We want something that's going to have a calming resonance, because the way awe works in our brain is that like you have this sense of wonder, but it's also touching fear. So when you were talking about the hike, I loved what you said about like even people who like don't like hiking, you drag them along and then you put them, on this beautiful precipice and they see it and they're like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
That's when something's happening in their body. That's their whole brain is shifting and they're dialing down. They're just ratcheting down. And that wonder and that awe, which actually has fear mixed into it, is actually reconnecting them to being human.
It's funny. One of the things that I've noticed, because we've all been stressed about this. Everybody's stressed. Whether you're stressed about getting sick, or you're a business owner, you're stressed about losing your business, or you're stressed about losing your job. Everybody's freaking stressed out. This is unprecedented. But I have found, I have almost, and not intentionally, Monique. This is not something I've actively thought about. It's just happened. But like, I have seen things. I've got this huge oak tree next to my house. It's towering, man. This thing's like 70 feet, 100 feet tall. It's huge. Every once in a while, I walk out and look at that thing, and I'm like, God dang, that's a really, really cool tree. Like, I mean, it's probably 100 years old.
Right.
It's. You just look at that, and you're like, damn, man.
You ever
Nature, you're pretty badass.
Yeah.
Like that's, and then, or you'll hear the birds singing in the morning, and realize that when things are going good, I don't really kind of stop and listen to that, but it's very calming when you're stressed out, and it's.
I like the birds. I like them in the afternoon when they come into the feeders. But now I have a squirrel picnic table in my backyard.
Oh, I wonder how you got that.
That somebody's wife made.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually a true story. He does have a squirrel picnic table given to him by my wife. Yes.
We're just going to have a special episode on Darren's problems.
Yes. That's going to be the longest
Only
episode
one
we've
episode?
ever done. Yes.
It's a whole
long
podcast.
Whole series. It's a separate podcast, yes. But it's interesting that you talk about the restorative qualities. When you're looking for it, you can walk outside and just find right in your own yard things that just like there's been days where I'm really stressed and I walk outside and it's amazing how quickly it just melts away.
Yeah, and that's connect. So what's happening for you is that you are connecting. Like when you talk about the oak tree, that oak tree. When you think about the way that oak tree is actually tapped into the earth, the planet. If you, and again, you're gonna laugh because I know the tree hugging is gonna come, but you go over to that tree and put both of your hands on the tree. And if you're really stressed out, put the middle of your forehead on the tree. Put your two hands in the middle of your forehead and just be with the tree. And the thing is that the energy and the vibration in that tree is so powerful. It's way more powerful than you are. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be a resonance. So it sounds silly, but you think about the things, like the topic of forest bathing. You look at the topic of psychology and the fact that soil.
Hold on.
What did you just
forest
say?
Bathing? What is forest bathing? We have to know now.
Sounds like I'm getting poison ivy.
Taking a bath in the forest.
It sounds to me like another word for nudist colony.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in the hot springs out west? You go into the the hot springs out there, and
it's forest. She said.
I know it's
Forest.
similar, but
what is this, Monique?
Are you just talking about bathing your spirit or something? Or?
Well, so forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, which is from Japan. It's also very big in Korea, but it's also becoming very big here. And botanical gardens are actually leading forest bathing hikes. And if you think about your hike up to that beautiful precipice where you have that awe moment, you're forest bathing. You're basically putting yourself out into nature and allowing yourself to be in the aerosol of the trees. And the thing is it taps into parts of your brain so that it will shift you. And the longer you're out in nature, the more your creativity will increase, the more your ability to problem solve will increase. So if you can have a homestead that has the kind of nature within it, that has the things that, okay, you got to pack up your whole car and you got to drive out to go to do the hike and you got to have the right, all that. Sometimes you just need to come home from work and you need to be able to walk around in your yard for 15 minutes. So lifescaping is just taking these way bigger things like going hiking, AKA forest bathing, and saying, how do I create that in my home environment so that I can tap into it regularly? So you're doing these micro doses of nature in order to shift the way your brain is dealing with anxiety and stress and hyperstimulation.
I like that.
I'm
microdosing. That's a Timothy Leary thing. I'm on board.
I'm not being melodramatic here, but this is seriously blowing my mind because I'm thinking about things much differently now. I'll give you an example, and maybe you guys can relate to this. When I think back to a lot of the vacations that I've taken, going to the Smoky Mountains, going to, Florida, going to, you name the place. I like outdoors. I love going hiking. I love doing all kinds of stuff. I can, like going to the Smoky Mountains, I forget everything about that vacation I took 5 years ago, except that moment when we got to the top of the mountain and that view came up and you're like, oh my God.
Right.
Or that hike when you turned the corner and you saw the waterfall. I will forget every other detail, every shop and restaurant we went to. 10 years later, I'll forget all except that one moment. That's the one thing that you look back and you're like, that's what I remember about the vacation.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really starting to understand like the power of that connection to nature. I've always been a nature guy. I've always been outdoors, but never really thought about the power that can have just in terms of recharging and dealing with, and then being able to have some form of that at your own house.
Well, you think about it. You have this 100-year oak tree.
Yeah.
How much that thing has mastered the way that, to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it's got the process down, the photosynthesis, everything else that it needs to stay alive. And it's like, I've got all of this bundled up. I know how to do this. I'm going to live until I'm not, but
I'm more of a survivor than you are at this point.
It knows how to survive through everything. I don't care about a recession. I don't care about a depression. I don't care about this.
I've survived tornadoes, bitch.
Yeah, look at me. When the hurricane made its way all the way up here.
Drought, floods. Screw it, man. I've been through it all.
You
I'm 100
survived
years
your
old.
3 kids as well.
I've survived Darren peeing on me. I mean,
Mr. Winnie driving his truck into me. I've just made through it all.
I did not hit the tree with my truck.
it was the opposite side.
That
of
was
the
a ditch.
driveway.
It was close. He avoided, but I mean that thing's got enough energy, and it's like I know how to save that energy, and if you need a little bit, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah, this is really fascinating. I'm really, I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking much differently about my own house and that experience, because if I were to think about that, waterfall moment, or the wow factor, as Monique calls it, it'd be pretty cool if I had that at home. So when I have that tough day, because I've already had this experience in this current situation that we're in. There's been a couple of days where something happened, like, I lost a deal, or, the week when my pipeline dry, Monique, we had 1 week, our pipeline went from the strongest pipeline I've ever had to 0, literally in 7 days. And I remember I had that day where I'm like, holy shit, what the hell's going to happen to us? I was really stressed out. And I walked outside and I felt, okay, we're going to be fine. Just being outside made me realize we're going to be fine. But damn, I need a wow factor because I need to step it up another level.
Well, how do you do that with your clients, Monique? Like the ones that don't understand that, they're just like, we just want new landscaping or whatever, and we heard, based on our
over here,
Google reviews and Angie's List, you got great reviews, so we want you. And you come in and you start talking about lifescaping with them. How do they? I mean, this is part of your sales process. How do you convince them that they need a little bit more?
That's actually a good question from Darren, which really
kind of
surprises
freaked out.
me. It's really, it's not normal.
Very good question. So
I have my moments.
I would say that part of the new iteration. So with the Great Recession, I made huge changes in order to figure out who my business was in the marketplace, and the end result of that was to shift my brand to lifescaping. So I was the Garden Continuum, and of course I picked Continuum for a reason.
Because you're never done?
Say it again?
Because you're never done?
No, because that web domain was not taken.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's never, you don't end.
Right.
You don't end until you're dead.
Yeah.
So why would the landscape end? It's not a kitchen. You don't install it and then you're
it's
done.
Living.
It's living, and it's evolving all the time. And so what I was realizing was I was doing a hell of a lot of work teaching people every single time I went there. I mean, I was exhausting myself. I was really clear, but my marketing wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so after I got my brand set, the next thing I did was I created a marketing pipeline, and I did it using HubSpot. And all of my marketing is inbound. And so what's happening is my entire strategy for getting leads has to do with my writing blogs and posting and teaching. I'm ever teaching, and I'm using education-based marketing through an inbound platform to basically, fish with the right bait. And I never go out. So they come to me. By the time they've signed up, they go through an automated process. By the time they've signed up, they already understand lifescaping. I have people actually writing to me saying, I'm so ready to start my lifescape. And so the cool thing is I don't have to do a whole lot of education now. I do a free discovery call, which it's online, but my first visit with people is a paid assessment.
So you've already warmed them up by the time
paid assessment, boys.
Yeah. Well, she does a free discovery call. You don't even have to spend the money for gas, which is fabulous. And you figure out what they want, and then you go see them. And it's like, you want me now? You got to pay for it.
Cha-ching.
This is brilliant.
It's kind of how most of my dates have gone. Now you want to meet me in person? Well, you're going to pay, mister. Yeah. It's like, oh shit, here I go.
If Monique's marketing plan was like a fishing metaphor, by the time she has the first conversation, the hook has been set, it's been reeled in, pulled into the boat. All she has to do is take the hook out and have a picture.
No, I was thinking more of like an evangelist. Like people are just like, once they know enough about her, they're like, yes, I want you.
Yeah, I mean that's brilliant. And I wrote down education-based marketing. I think that's brilliant. I've never heard it coined so simply, but it makes a ton of sense.
Right.
So the idea is to look at your market and find out like what is the suffering going on in your market, and how could you solve that suffering with just a blog article, and then keep doing that over and over. A client comes to me, they're suffering with something. I come back, I write a blog article about it. So in essence, by constantly putting education out into the market, what's happening is my perfect fit, because I've gotten really clear about who my perfect fit is finding me. And then when I have a conversation, I'm taking them to the next level of qualification, which is, does the timing work? Does what you want line up with what I can give you? And can you afford to do this? Or are you willing to invest in it? Because it really isn't a money grab. It's about whether people are willing to invest not only money, but time and their emotional state. We're asking them to emotionally invest in what they're doing to a parcel of land that they own. And if they're not willing to do that, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I've literally got like 10 ideas that just popped into my head about my own business. So you've got me really thinking about things differently. I really like this education-based marketing idea. So appreciate you sharing that with us. One thing that I'd
She'll
like
send you a bill.
I know this is actually a paid consult. I didn't even know it. I clicked her email, and there's terms and conditions down there that I didn't read. Damn it! You've got a great lawyer, by the way. But one of the things that I'm interested in, so how has what we're going through now with this COVID-19, shelter in place, all this crazy stuff, has it impacted your business yet? Is it like 2008? Do you think the impact of your business might be lagging? What have you implemented from the last time that you think is going to help you with what we're going through today?
The biggest thing that I've implemented is that I have relationships with my clients. And when things get difficult, people who are in relationship with people don't just cut them off.
Right.
I was not in relationship with my clients back in the Great Recession. I had young children. I was sort of hiding behind a desk, and I was operating the business, but I was not really relating to my clients. It was very easy to let go of.
Interesting.
And now I don't think I am. And I think that if anything, my relationship with my clients has grown. I mean, and we're seeing pain. I mean, there's definitely pain, because it's definitely been a rocky time. But the relationships with my clients, if anything, are getting deeper and better.
Are you guys feeling any impact to your business yet, or is that something you think may come in the future?
I think it might come in the future. It'll be really interesting to see. We're really watching very closely. I think there's a real difference in how I'm looking at my business. Actually, my first business coach gave a webinar to our industry in our national association, and he said a great thing. He said, normally what we do is we look at our financials. We budget, and then we look at them month to month. And he said, during this time, you got to look week to week, because it's going to change so drastically, so fast, because we're really in uncharted territory. We're not looking at a market that was, necessarily in a super bad place like it was with the Great Recession.
Right.
So we don't know necessarily what's going to happen. So his advice, which I took really I trust him, and I've just been looking at it on a weekly basis, checking payroll, really looking at overtime spends, just being vigilant, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that's a funny thing about this is, fundamentally the market was we were in the best economy in our country's history prior to all this happening. So there's not a model for this. There's nothing in the history books that we can go back and look at. But I think everybody's kind of sharing the same stress that every week that passes that we're not business as normal, the cut's getting deeper. We just don't know what that cut's going to be.
It's hard to like correct the ship at times.
Sure.
You're like, okay, I think I know it based on previous situations. This was what I would do when, my sales are dropping or whatnot, and I can fix it. And now you're just like, I can try to fix it, but it might not work. So what are my other options?
Yeah.
And you're just kind of spitballing sometimes and hoping one of them's going to stick.
Yeah. Something else that's really, it's angering me, boys. And we had an episode dedicated to this. It's the lack of any type of leadership from government or media talking about our immunity, our health, just our health in general. We've gotten to such an unhealthy place. And, one of the things that I find interesting in your business model we haven't really talked about, but you said that you garden and you do medicinal gardening, but, even like vegetables and that sort of thing and soil, nobody's talking about this stuff. And here we are.
Right.
This is the perfect moment. Everybody's paying attention. This is the perfect moment to talk about diabetes and blood pressure and junk food and sugar and the immune system and growing vegetables.
How much of that falls into your purview when you're giving a quote to somebody? Do you include a vegetable or herb garden into?
I talk about that all the time,
you?
and you have historically very few people want to take you up on it because it's work.
It is, but it's therapeutic, and that's the thing. If they got outside and just were working in the garden, doing a little weeding, watching I mean, you get to see your product from grow up, and then you get to reap the rewards from that. Mm-hmm. And that's so satisfying.
Now, I just did a blog post on vegetable gardens because my husband built me the most amazing vegetable garden that I had been dreaming about for years. I wanted raised beds because my back hurts because I've been doing this for my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I wanted beds that were up, way up high.
That was smart.
And so he built me, they're 25 inches high. And so I can kind of just lean over. I don't have to actually bend over. And I've been posting about it. And I've gotten so many responses, and I've gotten so many people saying, hey, could I do a vegetable plot? These are people in the past that would not have done it. They were not people who were going to put their hands in the soil. Right. And now we've been delivering like the little 6-packs and the vegetable starts to people, delivering some soil to them so that they can plant their own. We've been delivering flowers to people so that they can plant their own, because back when the garden centers weren't open yet. So what I'm seeing, which is really interesting, is that because people are home and because they're staring at their landscape, they're either disgusted and want to do something about it, or they're intrigued and want to do some of it themselves. And one of the things that we're really leaning into is we don't have to do it all. Right. The more we teach our clients how to do what we do, the more happy, healthy, and appreciative they'll be. And sometimes they go, you know what? Never mind, you do it. It's hard. Right. And that's good for you too.
But what about the other thing too, if I can, even take that one step further, Monique, I think this also can really foster relationships and, within neighbors that didn't exist before. Because like we grow a lot of stuff. Our tomato plants, there's no freaking way we can eat all those tomatoes. It's freaking crazy. They grow like weeds. And this is a great opportunity, especially now, to go to your neighbors and say, hey, I'll grow tomatoes, you grow lettuce.
You never offered me any tomatoes.
Jesus, dude, look at you.
Come on. What?
You're not going to grow anything. What am I going to get from you?
You just said it's an exchange. If I grow this and you grow that, we'll trade.
Look, I brought you some dollar weed.
Right. So
bring some beer.
But what about
hold on.
The other thing.
We're negotiating here, Darren. Excuse me. What kind of beer?
On the flower side,
whatever you want.
When you talk about, some of the things you talk about, and it's like, well, if we plant these flowers, if I plant this, I can't think of what it is, but anyway, you can bring butterflies into your space. You can bring hummingbirds into your space, and that on top of it, that's just like the cherry on top of the sundae when you're talking about your lifescaping, and it's like, oh my gosh, I get to sit out here and watch the butterflies come in, the hummingbirds are flying in, and I'm sure that's one of the factors or things you take into consideration with your clients too.
Absolutely. We have a lot of birders, people who are bird watchers, and they like, I had one client who really wanted Baltimore Orioles. And so we planted elm trees because they happen to like those.
You're up in Massachusetts. Why do they want Baltimore Orioles if you guys are Red Sox fans?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's no birds. There's no birds called the Red Sox.
So they wanted to do what? They wanted to bring in Baltimore Orioles?
They wanted a particular bird, so we planted a plant that would be attractive to that bird. And when they first saw them, I got an email. And that was just, it was awesome because they got what they wanted. So planting for animals is a really great thing. The one thing I always tell my classes when I'm teaching is that, remember that it's if you plant for the birds, you probably get a couple of chipmunks. If you get a couple of chipmunks, you might get a fox. So you don't want to freak out. Like, it's just, it's like this whole big thing. And we have a resident fox now in our yard, which I just think is the best thing in the world because it just means that the whole cycle's there.
All right. Now, you try to stay organic, too, with that? Mm-hmm. So, because you said that before, earlier, when you were talking about construction, the pickup trucks and everything else, and all the chemicals for fertilizer. So you try to keep it organic. Do you do the same thing? Like if there's an invasive insect or something, you say, okay, well, instead we're going to bring in some aphids to take care of that problem or whatnot. Do you help with that?
So no,
Okay.
that's a whole nother world. So like a lot of times, if people will put nematodes on the lawn to help deal with grubs, or that's really a whole nother world, one that is above my pay grade. And I like
Refer that out.
yeah,
I don't even know what a nematode is, so
Yeah.
I'm
nematode.
out.
Okay. So when we got red lily leaf beetle, that was really a problem on the Asiatic lilies. My answer to that was to throw all the lilies away.
Okay.
So
Don't do that.
and I'm not saying that targeting treatment, because we've done targeted treatment when we had gypsy moths really bad and they were
gosh.
attacking my really big trees.
Yeah.
I had the trees treated. So it's kind of like if you're super sick and you go to the doctor and they want to give you a medicine, you say yes, thinking, well, what else do I have to do? Well, maybe what I should do is I should make sure I'm really hydrated, and I should make sure I'm eating really, really good food, because I'm eating this medicine now that could kind of weaken my immune system while it's killing the disease. So let me do other things to improve my immune system. So you do the exact same thing with the land. And one really cool correlation is that if you think about the way the human body works, I eat food, it's digested in my gut. Well, plants don't have a gut. They have soil. Soil is the gut. It's the digestive tract for the plants. So what we're trying to do outside in nature is we're trying to make sure that the soil is as healthy and vital and biologically sound as it can be, because it's what's supporting the health and vitality of the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And so that relationship then suggests that, yes, if I am having a specific insect problem on that 100-year oak, right, then I would treat that oak. And then I would make sure that everything else around it is being cared for in an organic way.
So,
Does that make sense?
Yep. It
Not at all.
absolutely
I have
does.
no idea what the hell you're talking
Yeah,
about.
Yes.
Which is why we would pay you a lot of money to come do a landscape for us.
Hence the reason Jake's
That's
oak
why
tree
she-
is still living, because we all help.
It's why she has
Fertilize
clients
and water.
paying her $40,000 a year.
But here's something that's cool for. Here's a quick aside. And
No,
right now,
Darren, no.
Oh, jeez.
it is really fast.
Jesus,
It's
here we
happening
go.
in the Carolinas this year, and next year it's going to be here. And that's the cicadas.
Oh, I hate those little bastards.
You know about cicadas?
Yeah, we don't get them the way you guys do.
Oh, it's like the
Oh, my
friggin'
goodness.
plague.
Yeah.
So this has been really good, Monique. I want to plug your book a little bit. So it's Stop Landscaping, Start Lifescaping. Where can our listeners find your book?
Amazon, of course, but I was trying really hard to support indie bookstores as well. So you can get it on my website at thegardencontinuum.com, at the TGC store. So very easy.
I really want everybody to consider getting this book, because what we've talked about today, you've really opened my eyes on a lot of things, and I actually did not expect it, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. But we're going through such an unprecedented time right now.
Told you she's wicked smart.
Yeah, she's smart. I know. She's from Baston. My eyes have been open to a lot of things, and it's really important right now. Of course, everybody's stressed about business, their job. People don't want to get sick, and we've talked about that all that restorative stuff that happens when you're in nature. But the other thing too that we don't talk about enough is that some of the greatest gifts that we have for one another have been stripped away. Our ability to shake hands, our ability to hug, our ability to, today I was in a store and, everybody's wearing masks and I can't even tell if they're smiling at me. Like the little things that.
Look at their eyes.
Right. It's just, but I want the smile. Give me the whole thing. All this stuff is really difficult for all of us to go through, regardless of whatever you think about any of this shit.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really difficult. But finding a place where you can be restored, and if it's at your house, I think that's huge. And gosh, you're.
It's easier that way. We don't have to drink and drive to go to get restored.
Well,
We never do that.
There's
Darren.
that.
Jesus, coming from an Irishman.
Yeah.
But also too, your experience going through the Great Recession and what you walked away from. We're really starting to see a theme with people that have made it through that initial recession. So, gosh, this has been awesome, Monique. We really appreciate you coming on.
Gina, you also do some coaching and consulting too, right?
Yeah, I do. I help artists and brands. So I'm working with people who have businesses similar to mine who are really trying to put out an artisan brand. They're trying to put something special out into the marketplace. And it's not an easy thing to do when the business is really more of a consumer brand. When you think about, landscape, you think more of a consumer brand than an artisan brand. So that's my specialty.
If they're interested in working with you, how do they get in touch with you for that?
Very easy. On my website, under Academy, there's a speaking and coaching tab, and there's a little form. You just fill it out, and I do complimentary discovery sessions.
And what's the website again?
TheGardenContinuum.com.
Thank you.
We'll also post that in the notes, guys. So if you're listening on whatever podcast application you prefer, you'll find it in the notes. There'll be a link right to your website. Monique, we really appreciate you coming on. I mean, this has been great. My eyes are open. I'm ready to go home and completely rethink my lifescape, not my
He's
landscape.
He's going to hug his oak tree in a whole
I'm
different way
going to try it, dude.
tonight.
I'm going to put some hands on that big boy and put my forehead on him and see what he says.
You already have. There's an indent from where you've been bashing your head against
No,
him.
that's my office wall. That's where I've been doing that. Well, Monique, thanks for coming on the show and putting up with our BS.
Antics.
Thank you very
I'm sorry,
much.
antics.
Great. This was great.